Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to wrap up today with a special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to check out. Today's special selection comes at us from Ethan. Ihlo, Coalescence. I like that word. Something about it just really works. Coalescence. The album art on this is gorgeous. I love the color usage there. Especially how it sandwiches the pink and purples in between the blues. Just a gorgeous idea right there. This is 15 minutes of music. Let's dive into it and see what Ihlo is bringing to the table today. Has a little bit of weight already. Ooh, it went for the uplift and stopped itself short. Also, the reverb off to the sides is implying a heavy sense of spaciousness, almost as if we're in an empty area. Did I hear a cough on the side? Oh no, that's like a digital percussive sounds. Interesting phrasing on that guitar line. I like the bouncing synth pattern against the moody weightiness of the guitars. Gorgeous vocals. Light little cymbal hitting. It, just those two cymbal hits. Super groovy, continues to have moving guitar lines alongside the vocal melody. Yeah, hear a little bit of Leprous inspiration here. They're definitely doing their own thing though.
Go your own way, there's always
That was an interesting transition. Massive tempo change. Just kind of bursting into it. Such a poppy build-up right here. Are we gonna stick with it, or are we gonna transition back to some heavy stuff? Oh, into the chorus. Yeah. Love that harmony there. In the best way possible. A little bit of boy band vibes, and I'm digging it. This is just that resounding power right here. The guitar is just continuously pushing forward. Okay. They do love their echoey synthesizer work. It's so often used as a texture throughout many of these atmospheres. And it works too. It's a great effect. It's interesting too to hear the division there. The guitars typically bring about darkness and moodiness harmonically to the picture, while also bringing the weight of their tones. A lot of the times we hear the synth, it's usually a bit lighter and brighter, trying to improve the mood. Then you get the levity of the bells here too, in timbre and in harmony. But I mean, you listen to that background synth, that's not moody at all. Then you listen to these guitars. Yeah, that's weight being put down on you. Chord progression here. Feels like we're rising out of something. the guitars again. Lots of heaviness, this time tension too. Bringing in some dissonant tones. Nice brisk 6/8 right here. The buzziness of the guitar is interesting. It extends out to the sides, not the guitar tone, just the buzz. While the synth gives us this massive feeling, pushing so far away from this guitar sound in the center. I love the little cymbal flourishes. Great production on the drums too. The toms in particular are a little muted, but it perfectly fits in with everything else. It's a great call. That's a fun rhythm too. The snare giving us 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and the cymbals dancing around that. So many layers. Some that are just getting swallowed up by the largeness of it all. The sheer size consuming some of the smaller ideas. Those bends, too, on the synth, I think absolutely sell this sciencey feel. Something about them. Interesting choice with that. Almost 2 minutes of that 3/4 pattern. Granted, variation on it too. But they still decided to stick with that for a while. something about the rumble that existed underneath that. I don't know. I'm curious what this sound is. There was a good 10 seconds there where it said there was sound. In fact, at one point it was at like half volume still. I couldn't hear it. I know y'all couldn't hear it. Kind of curious about that. This is wonderful. I'm gonna have to check this out. Have we ever listened to Ihlo before? The album art looks familiar, but maybe not. I see right here in there's a little Spotify description. It says that album 2 is set for 2025. So that might be my first chance to dive into them. I mean, I could check out this album too, but keeping up with new releases is a lot easier than diving into older stuff. I don't know what it is about it. This was wild though. I quite enjoyed this. It's kind of it veers into a lot of different directions, which I think is why I enjoyed it so much. The texture work, the atmosphere work on this is excellent, but I also really love the vocals on this too. There's something very theater pop, post-hardcore kind of something going on there. It's a mix and match of a lot of stuff. I think in the realm of metal, I don't know many vocalists who it reminds me of. The falsetto stuff, that definitely gave me a little bit of some Lepers vibes early on, but as soon as they ditched that, I kind of lost that comparison a little bit. Like I said, they're definitely doing their own thing here, which is really great, but it's cool to see or to kind of hear where some of their influences might be. But I love the vocal work. I'm always going to be here for catchy, clean vocals, and we get that quite a few places here. We get some non-catchy ones too to kind of help drive the song forward and do something that's a little more complex than simple and memorable. Uh, we get some interesting vocal harmonies for varying types of effects. I liked all that. The guitars, they dance between rhythmic chugging. There's a lot of djenty sections in here, but there's just as many solid melodic riffs as well. And sometimes they're even interwoven within each other where, yeah, we will be working with some syncopated rhythms, but that doesn't mean that the guitar stops playing melodically. So I really dig all of that. Melody seems to be a strong aspect of this song, even though rhythm is also a strong aspect, even though atmosphere, foundation is still also a strong aspect. It's the balance of all of this that I think absolutely brings it all together into a strong cohesive package. Now, I wouldn't say that everything in here is well, it is all cohesive, but there is division. Not everything works together for the same direction. And that takes the song in some really cool ideas we're going to talk about in a second. But I like how generally the guitars, again, they kind of dance between both worlds. Same with the drums. There's usually always some sort of strong backbeat, some rhythmic pattern going on, but then you also have little accents, the transitions, the drum fills, all of this. The drummer is very expressive in this. And one thing that I really like about the drummer too is that they're not afraid to put something in for just a single beat out of an 8 or 16 beat phrase. This is a very interesting part. There was a section in the middle of the song, and I was like, oh, I like that cymbal. It was two really light crash cymbal hits. You know, maybe it was a splash. Anyways, it was one of the noisier cymbals, and just two hits, and they don't pop up for another like 15 seconds, and then the pattern loops again. Then we get to that point in the pattern again, and it hits them. Now, like, that's a very interesting embellishment, an ornamental idea on that drum pattern as a whole, and that's kind of how all of it works. There's usually a core beat, and then little embellishing ideas. It's sort of melodic and linear in a sense, where if you listen to the cymbals, it's sometimes we're working on 4-bar phrases. And it's not just going to be each bar has the same symbol ornamentation to it. It's a longer idea that you really have to see the whole phrase through. Otherwise, it's just going to kind of feel random. And I appreciate that. A little bit of that linear writing in the drum work. Very cool stuff there. Um, the bass has some cool lines in here. A lot of it is following along, especially when the guitars are going for that djenty stuff, just kind of locking into a rhythm. You're going to find the bass in that same area there. The bass has a couple of places to shine, but for the most part, they're the support. They're the glue. They hold everything together. They sit on that lower end and fill it out so that everything else has a strong, stable foundation to be built upon. And then there's the synths, and they also have cool melodic lines, cool atmospheric lines, cool ornamental lines. It's sort of a smorgasbord of everything. They they fill every role. And this level of diversity between all the instruments and how they kind of play around with everything. It's what makes this song really strong in my mind, and allows it to do what it does, which on the surface what it does is kind of divide the song down the middle and explore two very different realms, one of positivity and hopefulness and joy, and one of weight and heaviness, and I'd say at times maybe even sorrow. As I started to explain a little bit during the reaction, the synths are very light, both in timbre and in harmony. The instruments themselves do sound very bright, small, twinkly. There is the larger synths that tend to act as the wall of sound around everything, but pretty much anything that's melodic is very light. It's a breath of fresh air against the massive, heavy electric guitars that dominate the rest of the song. But even when we look at what they're playing, the guitars have these heavy, brooding chord progressions. Any melody played on top of them from the synthesizers is typically kind of light. There is that moment around, I don't know, somewhere in the middle of the song, minutes 8 to 10, 11, somewhere in there, where we had just these chunky, heavy, dark, weighty guitar tones and this very light, expansive synthesizer work. I couldn't remember the name of the instrument. And that moment right there really stands out to me. I think that was a perfect encapsulation of this entire song. The synths never, ever, as long as they're being melodic, lean into anything dark or negative of any sort. They always feel expansive, they feel vast, they feel positive. There is a real joy coming out of them. It's interesting to pair that against the guitars. But I think that what makes me even more intrigued about this is that the last uh, melodic instrument here is the vocals. They typically also have more of a positive energy to them. The melodic writing tends to have more uplifts. The progression of the melody tends to land on resolution towards the end, and generally speaking, the notes chosen and the relationships between those notes veer towards a more positive side. I'm not going to say that this is a joyous melody that the vocals sing, but that it never really feels like it carries the weight or the sorrow that the guitars do. And as far as harmonic information goes, these are the three main instruments that deliver that information, and two of the three lean more positive. This is a song that almost feels like the guitars want to take whatever positivity the rest of the instrumentation is bringing to the table and tear it down to be a lead weight on the, connected to these balloons here. There's so many beautiful, gorgeous moments in here, absolutely filled with positive energy and joy, and then the guitars come in and try to disrupt that with these gnarly sounds and heavy, brooding chords. There are times when it seems that the guitars are a bit more ambivalent to it all. This tends to be the more genty sections. Doesn't seem to have much of an emotional element to it, primarily because a lot of it's just focusing on one note with a rhythmic groove to it. It doesn't really bring a lot of emotional information to the table, at least not as far as the harmony is concerned. And this all kind of leads me to an interesting question here. What's the narrative story to this track? Judging from the beginning of the song, I was expecting something a bit heavier and moody. As the song went on, though, I found less and less of that. The guitars are an overpowering force, production wise, and mixed with the rest of the instrumentation. You can't ignore them, but they don't make up a majority of the composition, just a majority of the soundscape. So I can't wait to get to the lyrics, to kind of figure out where this division, this clash between the more positive and expansive sounds and the more constrained and weighty sounds, and how they work together, and what they're trying to represent. Now, the song has some pretty good flow to it, and I think this is another thing that absolutely works for me, is that the narrative movement between ideas is really good. I love the way that we can transition between heavier to softer sections. Yes, sometimes it's just fade ins and fade outs, but there's also build-ups. There's a retraction of ideas. There is foreshadowing, bringing an idea in from the next section a couple of bars early to introduce that. The drummer frequently plays around with time, introducing new time feels that will be the battery for the next section. Little things like this that help alleviate the aggressiveness of some of these harsher transitions here. Overall, it creates a song that feels consistently pushing forward with a singular vision. Yes, there is a division between the two types of instrumentation, the lighter and the darker side, but they all come together to create this sort of yin and yang combination of sounds that's consistent throughout the entire song. It allows the song to feel cohesive despite this clashing in the middle of everything about it. And many of the sections, like I said, they sort of bleed into one another, and it feels really natural to progress through this track. For being 15 minutes long, it's really easy to write something that might feel a bit more disjointed or vignette or chapter based, but this feels like one single experience, and that's definitely something to be proud of, especially when the song feels like it's trying to say something in particular. Speaking about saying stuff, let's dive into some lyrics here. See what's going on with Coalescence. So here's something interesting. You don't see this too often. Lyrically, verse chorus, bridge chorus. Traditional A B A B C B. This is very cool because the song's 15 minutes long. The song also musically to me is rather linear. I did catch the verse chorus within the first 4 minutes or so, but I didn't really notice that we had stuck with this. To me, it felt very different from that standard structure. So I think that's interesting. The song is also not quite what I expected. It is fairly negative in focus, but it also isn't spacey at all. Now, granted, doesn't have to be. It's just musically there's a lot of sci-fi sound tropes in here. There's a general concept of vastness that I hear especially in the synthesizers, both in their tone and in their ornamental playing. None of that's really in this at all. This is a very contained story. Now, I think it is supposed to be possibly metaphorical for all of humanity, and that you could extrapolate it out to that. You can create a vastness through it, but the story itself is small. It's about the narrator, the singer, the vocalist, the main character, however you want to look at that. An I and a you. We're talking about two people here. Verse 1 says, colliding together, the color lost all shade, pillars rising broken and decayed, facing down the root of your dismay alone. It hurts to know that I came so close to the edge to find you weren't there. Hands bound, you walked away somewhere else in time. Those last couple of lines are actually a continuation of verse 1, but they're technically the pre-chorus. The idea here, though, is that two people collided. They came into each other's world, and the narrator's world has been worse off for it. It says, we collided together, and all of the color lost their shade. Talked about pillars rising and breaking, but he said, I fought. I faced down the root of your dismay alone. So I tried to help you solve your problems, and no matter how close to the edge I got, you weren't there. This could be seen possibly in a romantic sense of, hey, I tried my best to help you and never really saw you on the other side of this. But it could also be the idea that, hey, I was, a shoulder for you to cry on all these years. I've been a solid rock for you. I came asking you for a little bit of help. I need some support, and you're not there. Very one-sided relationship, regardless of how you want to look at it. Chorus 1. Chorus 1. Chorus 2 is the same. It's just the chorus. It says, suspecting the worst memories makes us run, and we try to stay alone. So he says basically that our past haunts us. We come into situations that feel similar to what we've experienced before, and we end up expecting things to go the same terrible way they went last time. And so we run, and we decide it's better to stay alone. He goes, it gets worse to hear the melody that's running through your head, but we're stuck in our ways. The pain that we wish to own, rest assured, it's a lie. Basically, we're trying to fix ourselves. We're trying to take all the things that are negative within us and work them into a positive force. But it doesn't happen. It can't happen. The ability to do that is a lie within itself. Verse 2 continues on with this idea of trying to help someone else, colors turning gray, and moves into the pre-chorus of being so close to the edge and still I can't find you. And the second chorus is also the same as the first. So then we have the bridge. It says, I realize there's nothing left in me. The poison in my head has taken root. And I'm sorry to say I've taken a stand, said all that I can, burnt by the flame, and there's nothing left in me. This idea that this relationship has done so much damage to him that he's done. He feels burnt by the flame, as he states. He has nothing left to give. He's going to shift from being someone who has faith in humanity to somebody who is more apathetic towards everyone. That this negative situation, like he said earlier, is going to inform his future situations, his future relationships. And when things start to look like they're taking a sour turn, when things start to look like they're one-sided, instead of trying to see how it plays out, he's just going to run away. It all kind of ties together. And so we have somebody who tried their best to help the people around them and constantly found that they never had a support system for themselves. And so they're just going to stop helping those around them. And that creates a web of loneliness, creates a web of pain. I can't say I understand this track. Musically, phenomenal. I love a lot of what's going on in there. Lyrically, also really interesting. I think there's some good metaphors in here. It's a bit figurative, but it didn't go over my head, so I'm really happy with those middle of the road ideas. Metaphors, I can lose them pretty easily. These two work in isolation. I have no idea how this works together. This is just a song that is depressive. It's a song that shows the downfall of someone. And like I said, it feels like you can extrapolate it out. It's really easy for people to feel like they're getting burned by those around them and to seek isolation rather than strength in numbers. I have no idea where any of the positive ideas in the music come from. Even if we take a look at the fact that he tries to help someone as positive, it also seems that he gets a lot of anxiety through that also. It's the very first verse where he, I guess technically the first pre-chorus, where he says, I needed a support system and you weren't there. Right off the bat, line 5. So yeah, there really isn't anything positive in here. I think if you remove the synths entirely and stuck with that moodier sound, it would lose a lot of its musicality. Trust me, I get that. but I think emotionally it would be on par with what the song's trying to do, unless maybe I'm missing what this brighter synthesizer stuff is supposed to represent, the vastness of it. I don't know. Maybe it's just supposed to represent a large sound sphere, a large world that our vocalist feels, or main character, whatever, feels isolated within. They feel alone within. But I think that would require instrumentation that also feels alone. And while there are a couple of places where I mentioned, hey, the guitar feels very singular against a very wide sound, even the reverberation from the guitar kind of implying a largeness, it's in moments that happens. I don't get that feeling in every moment of the song. Most of it still feels rather positive to me, very light with a tinge of, trying to be pulled down. And this song is about being pulled down, not not an attempt, but an actualization of that. So I don't know. I'm not really seeing how all this works together, but I do enjoy both bits in isolation, and I hope one of you have a really cool interpretation of this that would help me understand how all of this works together as a whole. But as we stop here, these are just my thoughts on Ihlo's Coalescence. Let me know what you thought of this track. If there's anything that stood out to you, anything that you would like to add on to what I said or correct me on, maybe you have your own thoughts, opinions, and perspective about this, please put all of that and any other thoughts you have down into the comment section. Above that, in the description box, you'll find a link to Linktree. Takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. Alright, that wraps it up for this one. I'll be back tomorrow, though, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.